I'm not necessarily telling you guys to bench all of the players I'm about to go through, but what I am telling you is that you should be, at the very least, considering looking for other options in Week 1 fantasy football. So today I'm going to go through 5 players that the smartest teams are going to be fading in Week 1 fantasy football. And I'm doing everything I can to get us ready for Week 1 fantasy football. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, I do want to address this off the bat right here. I've been listening to a lot of what you guys have been saying, asking me questions. How does the Waiver Wire app work? What do I do on this site? Well, I listened to a lot of the concerns here, and I wanted to offer you guys a free trial for 12 days on the website so that you can access the Waiver Wire tool and see exactly the value it's going to bring. Because I know in the long run, you will see the value so much, so it's going to give you a great experience right out of the gate by just getting this free trial and seeing exactly how to use the Waiver Wire tool. Because as I've been saying, it's giving you more value than you could ever imagine, because nobody's ever done it in the fantasy space, giving you an automatic waiver wire tool so you can sleep through the night peacefully and not have to worry about waking up to beat all of your other insane league mates who are trying to get players on the waiver wire at 5, 4, 3 o'clock in the morning. So go ahead and go to fsroundup.com. Just click to use that free trial and get started using FS Roundup's waiver wire tool. Now, getting into our first guy right here, I want to go through Calvin Ridley once again because it cracks me up how many people got red hot with me about my lack of ranking for Calvin Ridley in the wide receiver rankings I did on Monday. He is going to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos in Denver, guys. This is a brutal matchup. And I think what a lot of people who maybe are particularly new to fantasy football need to consider with Calvin Ridley is you have to factor in cornerbacks and what the opposing team's corner is like in press coverage when you are thinking about playing a wide receiver in fantasy. There's a couple corners that you really need to take into account. Pat Surtain's one of them. He's the best cover corner in the entire league. Jamar Chase last year played Pat Surtain, and he was largely shut down. So Calvin Ridley, yeah, I'm sorry, but he will get largely shut down in this game. Now, Denver was a middle-of-the-pack defense as far as passing yards per game in 2024, but it does not matter when your team's wide receiver 1 is taking on Pat Surtain. It just doesn't make a difference, guys. Pat Surtain is going to lock down Calvin Ridley this week. I said this on the wide receiver rankings. This is one of the toughest openers to any team in week 1, but you add in the rookie quarterback factor to this one as well. This is a near impossible feat for Cam Ward to be able to handle this week. And Calvin Ridley is in a bad spot against Pat Surtain. This is one guy I would say, if at all possible, bench Calvin Ridley. Now, the next guy I want to go through is, I would say, another guy that fits into that tier as well. Bench Javonte Williams, if at all possible. He is going to Philadelphia tomorrow night to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think anybody's super hyped to play Javonte Williams. Like, people are excited to play Calvin Ridley because they think he's going to be great and he's the best thing ever. He won't be, by the way, but Javonte Williams, nobody's really excited to play Javonte. But the reality that everybody understands is you need running back play. Running backs are very rare to find in fantasy football. So if you went 0 running back, Javonte Williams might be your second running back that you got in 2025 drafts. I would say that this is a week where you skip Javonte Williams for several reasons. So aside from the fact that he sucks, right? Like, he's just not a very good player anymore in football. Philadelphia has the toughest run defense once again in 2025. Now, the irony of that is that, you know, most people acknowledge that, but this is the beauty of Philadelphia drafting so well as an organization. They were able to let guys like Milton Williams go in the middle of that defense because they know they had reinforcements right behind him ready to take his place. Like, this defense will not lose, they will not skip a beat as far as shutting down opposing teams' running games. And if you also just think about the game script of how this particular game is going to go, they're going to be trailing for the majority, if not all of this game. Dallas will be. So they're going to be an in must-passing situations, particularly as the game gets into the second half, right? So if Javonte Williams doesn't have like 12 carries by the first half, it'll be completely worthless anyways. And I just don't know if I can see that happening because I already think that there's going to be a split backfield at some point in this Thursday night game. Whether it's Jaden Blue, whether it's Miles Sanders, I think someone will come in because Javonte will be just so ineffective running the football that they can't get anything going if they want to try the run game. And he's not a pass catcher either. So I just think Javonte Williams at every angle, you cannot convince me that he should be started over someone like a Travis Etienne or even a RJ Harvey or a J.K. Dobbins this week. Like, there's so many options that I can think of to play in place of Javonte Williams. To me, he fits in that same tier as Calvin Ridley to where I can't start these guys if at all possible. Now, with Austin Ekeler, who is our next guy, I would say that I could see more utility playing him than I could with Javonte or even Calvin Ridley. Austin Ekeler is going to be playing the New York Giants at home on Sunday. Now, with this matchup right here, on the surface, it doesn't look like it's that tough of a matchup, right? Like, they're being favored by, I think, like 6.5 or 7.5 points, according to Vegas this week. Vegas thinks that the Commanders will win, and I would say I'd probably lean that way too. I think this is one of those sneaky games, though. You get week one, every team is in it. They believe that they're going to be good. And the Giants' defense is actually really freaking good. The Giants have a really tough defense, particularly in their front seven, which they just continue to bolster every single year. So already, it's not going to be a good rushing matchup for Austin Ekeler. Now, the other factor here is that it is an ambiguous backfield. Like, whether you like it or not, this is one of those backfields that I honestly don't know how the workload is going to be split up early in the season. I did say my prediction was that Austin Ekeler will get the most amount of work. And I think that's why he's on people's minds to play this week against a, again, theoretically weak matchup versus the New York Giants. But I think that there's a good chance that Austin Ekeler does not handle more than 10 carries in this game and maybe 3 targets. So even if he does get some volume and leads the backfield, I don't think he'll be that efficient against a bad defense. And on top of that, I just don't think he's that good. Like, I just really don't think that we're seeing Austin Ekeler of old. And I think a lot of people agree with that. But I don't even think it's going to be good enough for fantasy production against a team like the Giants. Now, if he was playing a team like the Cincinnati Bengals in week one, I would say, yeah, I could see starting Austin Ekeler. He wouldn't be on my fade list this week. But this week, Austin Ekeler playing the Giants, I think it's a tough divisional matchup. I think the Giants will come ready to play. And I do expect this to be more of a dogfight than a fantasy point scoring game.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast for the 3rd year in a row. Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, the next guy I want to talk about, people are going to get mad at me all over again because I've got Joe Burrow as my quarterback fade of the week. He is going to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Brownies. And this one really goes hand in hand with T. Like T. Higgins, if you did not watch my wide receiver ranking video this week, I left T. Higgins out of the top 30. And it's been hilarious. People have been pissed about that one, calling me stupid, saying I had an AI-generated ranking list. The funny thing is, all of that is untrue, number one. And the second thing that's funny is that I think a lot of people will come to a realization that the Bengals start slow. A lot of people don't consider this in fantasy football. You see Bengals players, you think they're going to be good in fantasy, right? Well, typically that is the case. But again, you need to realize this. In the month of September, this Bengals team is awful. The first 2 weeks, particularly, under Zach Taylor, the head coach, this team is 1-9. 1-9. You heard that correctly. They are awful. If you remember last year, they lost week 1 playing the New England Patriots. Like, this is a bad team in the month of September. And this is a situation where divisional matchups are always wonky in general, but I would say that going to Cleveland is not an easy feat for a team that is not good at September. I think it's a really tough matchup, to be completely honest with you. Now, Joe Burrow and the starters, they did play during the preseason. That's the one thing that you could convince me on, maybe, that they'll be better in the month of September. Because if you look back to Joe Burrow's career, he was dealing with an appendix removal a couple years ago. He was dealing with his elbow last season. He was dealing with his ACL tear a couple years ago. Like, there's been a lot of things that have happened to Joe Burrow that have really kind of not let him practice in training camp and play in the preseason. They did put an emphasis on that. So maybe, just maybe, they'll come out looking better. I'm going to stick with history on this one because history repeats itself, and the Bengals won't be good in the month of September again. I'm fading Joe Burrow. And this is one of those situations where I always look back and I say, I do not ever endorse picking two quarterbacks in a redraft league, particularly if you have a top tier one. And as you know, Joe Burrow cost a lot in fantasy drafts this year. But I would say, for those people who did draft two quarterbacks in a redraft league, and if you have someone like a Jordan Love on your bench, a Jared Goff on your bench, a Caleb Williams on your bench, I would say to play those guys over Joe Burrow this week. Obviously, you're not going to sit Joe Burrow if he is your one and only quarterback, but if you do have one of those options, I would personally go ahead and play that guy. And moving on to my tight end sit of the week right here, it's going to be Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is going to Brazil on Friday to play the Los Angeles Chargers. So first of all, I've been dogging on Brazil quite a bit this week. And again, it's not because I hate Brazil, the country. Like, it has nothing to do with that. It's entirely based on the field conditions last year in that game. And it was a awful field. Like, it was disgraceful how badly that field was in shape. It was just disgusting, to be completely honest with you, if you want to know the truth. A lot of this, though, ties back to my pre-draft analysis of what I've been saying about Kelce for a while now. This guy is 35 years old, well past his prime. Like, are we really trusting this guy to provide you good tight end upside? Because I understand on one hand that this guy is a Hall of Fame talent, and he should be targeted enough without Rashee Rice and other receivers there. Speaking of Jalen Royals, I can understand people who say, yeah, he's going to get targeted though. But the bottom line is you need to play fantasy football based on upside that players can give you. I'd take Kyle Pitts this week over him. I would take Jake Ferguson this week over him. Travis Kelce offers no upside. Going to Brazil and playing the Los Angeles Chargers defense, which is really good, by the way. This is one of those games that screams to me low scoring with very few realistic fantasy options in this game. I just don't think it's a very fantasy strong game, and I would just avoid a player who's 35 over the hill and not particularly focused on football anymore at this point of his career. So let me know who you are fading in week one fantasy football, and if you want to see the best starts to make in week one fantasy football, click on this video right here.